listening to the Forza Podcast with your host, Marsh.
What up, Canes fans? It is the Forza Podcast. It is Tuesday, February 9th. Hitting the show off and running today. We got Jordan here, and we are joined by our good friend, one of our best friends, Gaby Urrutia from 247 Sports. Hi, Gaby.
What's up, Marsh? What's up, Jordan? How you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty
I'm
good.
doing
man.
well, bro. Ready? Getting.
How was the move?
Bro, it has been something. It has been something for all you people that have moved. Know that it definitely has its ups and downs. I love the place, but still working on getting full internet access and all those types of things. So, pretty limited. I got myself like a little turf golf, little like a foot of turf. So and like some wiffle balls, and I've just been like swinging my golf clubs in my backyard. There's no fences or anything up, so just a bunch of grass.
I feel like you're like 4 hours away now.
Oh, I am. I'm far, man. Like I'm going up to play basketball in a little bit here with some buddies I usually play with, like almost weekly, and that 10-minute drive just turned into like a 35-minute drive. But but ball's life, so definitely gotta do that.
Yeah, so me, Gabby, and Cam Underwood had lunch last week, and Gabby said, "Hey, this place in Midtown Miami." It was great, by the way. It was great, but good Lord, it took us probably an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that area. I parked in the parking garage above the restaurant that we ate at, and I walked around for no joke. Like this is not an exaggeration. I walked around for 25 minutes to find a restaurant I parked literally right on top of. So that was super embarrassing. But it might have been worth it because that was some fire barbecue.
It was some good barbecue. Okay, so let's get into. I know you don't have much time. Little recruiting news. Or not really news, but I have a few recruiting questions. So you've been going to some 7-on-7 tournaments lately, and I promise I am going to make it to one of those days. One guy I wanted to ask you about, he was at the Battle Miami tournament, Kamari Rogers, out of Mississippi, cornerback, 4-star. I've watched his film. I think he's a solid prospect. Where do you think Miami stands with him, and where would you rank him in terms of Miami targets for cornerback in this class?
Yeah, I mean, to start, I think Kamari Rogers is an excellent prospect. Like, he was really, really good all weekend for the Louisiana Bootleggers, which is a team like Devonta Smith played on, OBJ played on that team. So probably, I guess, like the Louisiana, New Orleans powerhouse of the 7-on-7 circuit. And he was excellent. He was awesome all weekend. He was covering Kyon Graves, 4-star guy out of Chandler, Arizona, which is a big-time program there out west. He's actually getting some crystal balls to Ohio State, so potential Buckeye, and he kind of locked him up, did a really good job covering him. Shut down Jaylen Brown, the 2023 top 100 wide receiver, who's one of my favorite prospects, like across the board in Miami-Dade County. And I haven't really seen Jaylen Brown get shut down like that ever. So that was, I think that was more of a testament to Kamari Rogers rather than like a knock on the sophomore Jaylen Brown. But I think Miami's in a good spot. Obviously they're battling two in-state schools, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. He has a few crystal balls to Ole Miss. The Mississippi State insider actually on 247 Sports has him crystal ball to Miami. He's been hearing some good things, and I think that's coming out of Kamari Rogers' camp. I spoke to him, and I got the impression that him and DeMarcus Van Dyke had been building a relationship for months now. And again, I just think this is another one of those situations where you kind of look at the DeMarcus Van Dyke move and see how much sense it makes to make him an on-field coach, to be a guy that can recruit continuously throughout the year in person when eventually that happens. And I think Kamari Rogers is a prime example of that. I absolutely think Miami's right in the thick of things, and I know Miami's absolutely pushing for him. As far as where he sits on the board, I think Earl Little Jr., just being a local guy, I think he sits at the top of the board, but I think Kamari Rogers is just below him from a talent standpoint. You can make the argument for either one depending on your preference, but I would still put Earl Little a little bit above him, and then I would probably put Kamari Rogers followed by, then it's just a matter of preference of what people like. You have the Jacoby Spellses, you have you have the Trevon Mullins, you have guys like that where, I mean, I guess it's kind of just who you like and stuff, but I would put Kamari Rogers definitely near the top of the board.
Okay, so staying with the defensive backs and really on the defense, I want to ask you about the new coaches, T-Rob, T-Will. home run hires I think in the eyes of all Canes fans. You've talked to recruits since the hirings. How much, and we all have heard that, they're incredible recruiters, especially T-Rob. How much of an impact, does this really have? And will this really, hold on, let me rephrase that. How much of an impact will this really have, do you think, with Miami recruiting in this class and recruiting more of the elite players in South Florida and across the country on defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think T-Rob specifically is gonna have a big impact. Like you're hearing guys like Dante Anderson and Daniel Lyons and even like a few of the other top targets talk about how they've heard from T-Rob. Wesley Basante's heard from T-Rob. Like guys like that T-Rob's not only sticking to the defensive backs. You can tell that he's going to be a guy that's going to be involved in for all these guys, for all these defensive targets. Like he's just one of those guys that just what he brings as a recruiter is too valuable to just specifically restrict him to just what the defensive back room brings. So I think that he's huge in that aspect. I think Travis Williams is a guy that, I mean, you speak to Auburn fans, like you can go on our message board and, the Auburn inside Keith Niebuhr, who does an excellent job covering Auburn for 24/7 Sports. He came on our board and posted just a bunch of amazing things about Travis Williams. I actually have a buddy who his best friend is a diehard Auburn fan, and he's saying, oh, I want to come down to Miami to watch a game at Hard Rock just because of Travis Williams. Like he was not a guy Auburn fans were ready to let go of. I mean, he had a huge impact with them. I mean, you see a lot of these out-of-state linebackers that Miami's offering, and you click on their 24/7 Sports profile, and you're seeing that Travis Williams is a primary recruiter for a lot of these guys, and sometimes Auburn's listed as warm. So Auburn was making an impression with Travis Williams leading the way. So I think he makes a huge impact, out of state in the South, which are kind of like his roots, the Georgia, Atlanta area, Alabama, North Carolina, the Carolinas, that type of stuff, and also kind of establishing, obviously the South Florida area where Miami primarily likes to recruit. I don't think he's going to have any trouble at all, kind of developing some strong ties down here, and eventually like leaving his footprint on these recruiting classes going forward.
Okay, so you've talked about the defensive backs, and we know that cornerback is a huge need for Miami in this class. But I mean, linebacker is in my opinion just as big of a position of need in this recruiting class. We know Wesley out of Miami Central. Who are some linebackers that you think Miami realistically has a shot at? And then I also want to ask you about the defensive line and where we stand with that. But yeah, who are some of the linebackers that you're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Right. Oh, just once you mentioned Wesley Basante, I think he's absolutely at the top of the board. I think Travius Lathan out of Miami Gulliver Prep, it's just down the road from UM. Like it's just down US1, not far at all. And, I spoke with him and, you can read our conversation at InsideTheU.com and just look it up there. But he basically told me that, Travis Williams told him and T-Rob told him, like, you're right down the street from us. Like, we're not going to let you get out of here. And that's a big deal because, there's schools like Florida, there's schools like Oregon, there's schools like Georgia that are really pushing for Trey, who he calls himself Trey. That's like his nickname. And, it seems like Miami's really going to start to kind of turn the heat up there. And I think he's a really good player. He's a guy that plays a lot of wide receiver, just a really skilled athlete, just a guy that definitely translates to, once he moves primarily to the defensive side of the ball, he has a skill set to just be really athletic and kind of fill in a lot of the stuff that Miami kind of doesn't have on their defense or hasn't had in the defense, just especially at the linebacker position, like you mentioned. So I think Travius Lathan's another guy. And then, I mean, you kind of start moving towards like the out-of-state targets, and you can go, Devon Jackson out of the Nebraska area, Javon Willis out of Lee County. You can go TJ Dudley out of Montgomery, guys like that, where it's like, they have like, we're going to kind of see how the board starts to shape up. Because again, Travis Williams does have those ties, but obviously with this time of COVID that no one's able to travel or visit anywhere, who knows how real that interest is. So I think with the linebacker board, it's going to be one of those things that I feel like it's going to develop later on, just given the circumstances. And again, just given that we don't really know how much of a pool Travis Williams is going to have with those guys, because again, they're not able to visit at this moment. They're not able to get out on the road and kind of gauge that. So everything that's happening there is just happening virtually and stuff like that. So I think that's just going to be a product of this cycle. I think you're going to see a lot more guys kind of taking their time. I think you're going to see a lot more programs kind of taking their time with accepting kids and like accepting commitments and things like that. And I think it's just because everyone kind of wants to do their due diligence. So I think the linebacker board's going to kind of shape up a little more slowly, just based on everything.
Okay, so my last recruiting question for you. I know you and I are talking about a million miles an hour right now, but so I'll skip the defensive line question. You recently just posted an article on 247 about Ja'Cory Brown, 4-star quarterback out of Georgia. Originally he was thought to be a UF lock, but apparently with Brian Johnson leaving to the Eagles, that may not be the case anymore. Do you think Miami, has a realistic shot at him, because he's one of the top quarterbacks in this class, dual threat guy, has a little bit of Derek King in him. What are your thoughts on him? And after writing that article, where do you think his recruitment process with Miami stands?
Yeah, I think Miami's in a good spot right now. I think that, like you mentioned, like Florida, obviously, I think even with the departure of Brian Johnson, I still think that they're going to be a player in this. But I if you read the article on InsideTheU.com, like he said that absolutely made an impact on it. So, but I think Miami's sitting in a good spot. I know Texas A&M, Auburn, Arizona State are a couple of the other schools he mentioned, but I mean, but Texas A&M and Auburn have already taken commitments from quarterbacks. So how much does that impact Ja'Cory Brown? Who really knows? But I mean, I like Ja'Cory Brown. I think that he's a lot of people, like his knock that people like to say, especially on our message board, is that, he's not a good thrower. And, that's obviously fair. Like, that's a fair assessment. But he's an elite runner. He does a lot of different things well. He's a winner. He's been at one of the winningest programs in Georgia at Valdosta Lowndes. So he definitely has that aspect of it. And, what I actually just posted not too long ago on our board, and I was saying, like, when you bring in a quarterback, you're not expecting him, like Ja'Cory Brown isn't going to be a plug and play guy. Like, you're not expecting to get a Ja'Cory Brown type and just say, hey, by the way, you're starting game one as a true freshman. Like, you're expecting to develop any arm that comes into your program. So, to have a guy like Ja'Cory, who's already an elite runner, who already has a skill set that just it's just not found at 6'4", 200 plus pounds. Not a lot of people are walking around like that with those kind of like intangibles. And so to bring in a guy like that and then develop him in your system is kind of like what you can do. And I think that's really why Ja'Cory Brown has so much upside to me. But yeah, I mean, I think Miami's definitely in a good spot in his recruitment. And we'll continue to monitor and see how that kind of goes as things change up and time continues to kind of progress.
Well, changing pace a little bit, Gabby, I want to ask you about, I guess, how you're projecting the defensive side of the ball for us next year. So I'm having a hard time deciding how I feel. I know Manny Diaz is, he was a wildly successful defensive coordinator for us. He's going to be calling the plays again. However, one of my predictions for this last season is that we would see the worst defense since Manny Diaz was hired on staff here. And that was more so because of personnel in terms of players than it was the coaching staff. I know the coaching staff got a lot of the blame. I'm not trying to dispute that. However, do you kind of see where I'm going with this? And that, I'm not sure that running the same players back is going to make us a whole lot better with a different guy calling plays. And I just want to gauge your temperature on that idea.
Yeah, I mean, something that a lot of people don't understand is how involved Manny Diaz has already been in the defense. Like, he's been very open about that. Like, if you've been listening to his press conferences in the past, like, Manny Diaz has said multiple times that, he is a part of the defensive game planning. Like, he is a part of every single defensive meeting. So, a lot of people like to put stuff on Blake Baker, but Manny Diaz was very much involved with what was going on. So honestly, I'm not sure how much is really going to change, other than the fact that I think he's going to be like primarily focused on the defense and kind of let Rhett Lashley do his thing on offense, apart from, his CEO duties where he has to check off a few things. But I mean, the name of the game in college football is just, I think it's just experience, like, obviously, the personnel is going to be basically exactly the same, minus a few pass rushers, which is definitely going to hurt Miami. But I mean, I think that you get a lot of experience back, and I think you hope that under, a hopefully regular spring, a hopefully regular summer, and then, a hopefully regular fall camp, that these guys are able to make like serious improvements. Like, they're actually able to make like, tangible improvements. And with the experience that they already kind of carry alongside with them, you kind of hope that, those guys that were making X, Y, and Z mistakes last year aren't making those same ones this year, as, just being a year older, a year better, and just kind of having that veteran presence on a defense. So I mean, I could see a situation where it doesn't go